One of the biggest mistakes people make when moving to the Alabama Gulf Coast is thinking that there are only two options. They think it's either Gulf Shores or Orange Beach. And don't get me wrong, those are two of the most well-known areas along the coast. But if you're actually thinking about living here full-time, there are several other communities that you should understand before you decide where to buy. Because living directly by the beach is very different from living in Foley. Foley is very different from Robertsdale. Robertsdale is very different from Fairhope. And Fairhope is very different from Spanish Fort. So the real question is not what is the best place to live near the Alabama Gulf Coast. The real question is which area fits the way you actually want to live. Do you want to be close to the beach? Do you want more space? Do you want a quieter small town feel? Do you want more shopping and everyday convenience? Do you want to be closer to Mobile? Or do you want something that feels more scenic, walkable, or community focused? Because each area gives you something different. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through some of the most popular areas to consider near the Alabama Gulf Coast, what each one feels like, and who each area may be a good fit for. And just to be clear, I'm not saying one area is the best for everyone. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. This is based on lifestyle, location, housing options, convenience, and what buyers are usually looking for when they start comparing these communities. But first, if this is your first time on the channel, I'm really glad you're here. I'm Miranda Baldridge with Advantage Real Estate, your local go-to realtor and community connector right here in Baldwin County, Alabama. I help people relocate to Foley, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Robertsdale, and all the surrounding areas. And one of the biggest things that I help buyers understand is that the Alabama Gulf Coast is not just one lifestyle. There are beach communities, inland communities, small towns, there are residential areas, and places that feel more connected to Mobile Bay or the Eastern Shore. So if you're thinking about moving to Baldwin County or anywhere near the Alabama Gulf Coast, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I share videos about what it's really like living here and what you should know before making the move. And if you ever have questions about homes, neighborhoods, or relocating to the area, feel free to reach out anytime. All right, let's talk about some of the best areas to consider near the Alabama Gulf Coast. Let's start with Gulf Shores because that is usually one of the first places people search when they start thinking about moving to the Alabama Gulf Coast. Gulf Shores is one of the main beach communities in this area, and for a lot of people, it represents the classic Alabama beach lifestyle. This is where you have beach access, restaurants, outdoor activities, visitors, vacation rentals, condos, and that more active coastal feel. The official Alabama's Beaches tourism site describes the area as having 32 miles of shoreline across Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, and Fort Morgan. So when people think about Alabama's beaches, Gulf Shores is usually one of the first names that comes up. Living in Gulf Shores can make a lot of sense if you want the beach to be part of your regular routine. If you want to be able to get to the water quickly, enjoy coastal restaurants, spend more time outdoors, and feel like you're living in a true beach town, Gulf Shores may be worth considering. But it's also important to understand the trade-off. Because Gulf Shores is a popular visitor destination, the area can feel busier during peak seasons, especially during summer, spring break, holidays, and major events. So if you choose Gulf Shores, you're choosing beach access and coastal energy, but you're also choosing a lifestyle that can change depending on the season. For some people, that is exactly what they want. They like the energy, they like being close to the action, they like that the beach is such a big part of daily life. But for some who want a quieter, more residential routine, Gulf Shores may feel a little too active. So Gulf Shores is usually a good fit for people who want a true beach town lifestyle, and they are okay with the seasonal rhythm that comes with it. Now let's talk about Orange Beach. Orange Beach is close to Gulf Shores, but it has its own feel. Where Gulf Shores often feels more like an active beach town, Orange Beach tends to feel more connected to boating, marinas, waterfront living, and a slightly more polished coastal lifestyle in certain areas. You'll see condos, waterfront properties, canal front homes, marinas, and restaurants where the water is a majority of the experience. For some buyers, Orange Beach is appealing because it feels like the beach lifestyle, but with more of a boating and waterfront focus. If you love the idea of being near the water, having access to marinas, enjoying waterfront restaurants, or looking at condos or homes with water views, Orange Beach may be an area to consider. It can also be a strong option for people who are interested in condo living. A lot of buyers who look in Orange Beach are not just asking, how close am I to the beach? They're also asking, what kind of water water access do I have? What kind of view do I want? Do I want a condo? Do I want a boat slip? Do I want to be near a marina? That is what makes Orange Beach feel different. At the same time, Orange Beach is still a coastal destination, so it can still get busy during peak seasons. Traffic, visitors, restaurant crowds, and seasonal activity are all still part of the lifestyle. But depending on where you are, Orange Beach can sometimes feel a little more spread out and a little less hectic than certain parts of Gulf Shores. So Orange Beach may be a good fit if you want a coastal lifestyle that feels more waterfront, boating oriented, and resort style. But if you want more space, lower costs, or a more traditional residential type setting, you may want to compare it with Foley, Robertsdale, or other inland areas. Foley is one of the most important areas to understand because it's often the bridge between beach living and everyday residential life. A lot of people who start by looking at Gulf Shores or Orange Beach eventually start comparing Foley because they realize they may be able to get more home, more space, and more everyday convenience while still being close to the coast. Foley is inland, so it does not feel like a beach town. It feels more residential and practical. You have shopping, restaurants, grocery stores, medical services, neighborhoods, newer communities, and everyday essentials. For many people, that's the appeal. They want to enjoy the beach, but they don't necessarily need to live directly in the beach environment every day. Foley gives you that balance. You can drive down to Gulf Shores or Orange Beach when you want to enjoy the water, but your daily routine is usually more centered around errands, neighborhoods, shopping, and normal day-to-day life. Foley is also one of the areas where buyers often find more variety in housing. You may see newer construction communities, established neighborhoods, single-family homes, and different price points depending on where you're looking. So for someone who wants to be near the Alabama Gulf Coast, but also wants a more practical home base, Foley can make a lot of sense. The trade-off is that you're not right on the beach. So if your dream is to walk the sand every morning, Foley may not give you that. But if you're okay being a short drive from the beach in exchange for more residential convenience, Foley is one of the main areas that you might want to consider. Robertsdale is another area that people sometimes overlook at first, but it can be a good option depending on what you want. Robertsdale is more inland and it is more central within Baldwin County. It has more of a small town feel. It's not as connected to tourism as Gulf Shores or Orange Beach. The city of Robertsdale describes itself as being in the heart of Baldwin County and is often known as the hub of Baldwin County, which makes sense because of its central location in the middle of the county. Living in Robertsdale is not about being right next to the beach. It's more about having a quieter home base, more space in some cases, and easier access to different directions. From Robertsdale, you can get to Foley, the beach areas, Mobile, or even Pensacola, depending on your routine. That can make it appealing for people who want flexibility and don't need the beach to be part of their daily life. Robertsdale may be a good fit if you want something quieter, more spread out, and less influenced by tourism. It can also appeal to buyers who want more of a small town environment while still being within driving distance of the coast. The trade-off is convenience and beach access. You're not going to have the same number of restaurants, shopping options, or coastal amenities right around you compared to Foley, Gulf Shores, or Orange Beach. And if being near the water is your top priority, Robertsdale may feel too far inland. But if you want a quieter lifestyle and central access to Baldwin County, it's definitely an area worth understanding. Magnolia Springs is a smaller community that is a very different feel from the larger, busier areas. This is one of those places that people look at when they want something quieter, more scenic, and more tucked away. It has more of a peaceful, small community feel. It's not a big commercial area. You're not moving to Magnolia Springs because you want shopping centers, nightlife, or constant activity right outside your door. You're moving there because you want something slower, quieter, a little more removed from the busier parts of Baldwin County. For some buyers, that is very attractive. They may want more charm, more space, or a setting that feels less developed. They may like the idea of being near Foley for convenience, but not directly in the middle of Foley's growth and traffic. The trade-off is that you will likely be driving more for daily errands. If you want restaurants, stores, and services right around you, Magnolia Springs may feel less convenient. But if you want a quieter setting and you're okay driving into nearby areas for shopping and services, it could be worth considering. Fairhope is one of the most well-known communities on the Eastern Shore in Mobile Bay. It has a very different feel from Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Foley, or Robertsdale. Fairhope is not a beach town. The lifestyle is different from Gulf Shores. It is more about Mobile Bay, downtown charm, restaurants, shops, walking areas, local events, and scenic views. The Eastern Shore tourism site describes Daphne, Fairhope, and Spanish Fort as being nestled along the eastern shore of Mobile Bay, which gives these communities communities a different identity from the Gulf Beach areas. Fairhope often appeals to people who want something that feels more charming, established, and community-oriented. Downtown Fairhope is a big part of the appeal for many people. You have shops, restaurants, coffee spots, parks, and views of Mobile Bay. For buyers who want walkability, character, and a more scenic downtown environment, Fairhope may be very appealing. But Fairhope is not usually the most budget-friendly option compared to some other parts of Baldwin County. Because of its popularity, charm, and location to the bay, it can come with higher price points depending on what you're looking for. So Fairhope may be a good fit if you value lifestyle, charm, and community feel, and you're comfortable with the budget that may come with it. But if you're mainly focused on getting more home for the money or being closer to the Gulf beaches, you may want to compare Fairhope with Foley, Robertsdale, or Gulf Shores. Daphne is also on the eastern shore, and it tends to feel more suburban and commuter friendly than some of the other coastal counties. Daphne can make sense for people who want access to Mobile, Spanish Fort, Fairhope, and the broader eastern shore area. It's positioned along the eastern shoreline of Mobile Bay, and it gives residents access to I-10, shopping, restaurants, and services. Compared to Fairhope, Daphne may feel a little more practical and suburban. It has more of that everyday convenience feel with neighborhoods, retail areas, and access to major routes. For someone who works in Mobile or needs easier access to I-10, Daphne may be more convenient than living farther south than Gulf Shores or Orange Beach. That is one of the reasons people compare it. It gives you Baldwin County living with a stronger connection to Mobile and the eastern shore. The trade-off is that you're not living in the beach communities. You're closer to Mobile Bay, but you're not right by the Gulf beaches. So if your main goal is beach access, Daphne may not be the first choice. But if your priority is suburban convenience, access to Mobile, and being on the eastern shore, Daphne is an important area to consider. Spanish Fort is another eastern shore area that can be a good fit for certain buyers. It's located near I-10, which makes it one of the more convenient areas if you need access to Mobile or other parts of the region. Spanish Fort tends to appeal to people who want a suburban feel, newer neighborhoods in some areas, shopping access, and convenient routes. It is not a beach town. It is not going to feel like Gulf Shores or Orange Beach, but it can be practical for someone who wants to live in Baldwin County while still being connected to Mobile, Daphne, Fairhope, and the Eastern Shore. For some buyers, Spanish Fort is more about convenience, commuting, and access. It can be a good fit if your lifestyle is not centered around going to the beach every day, but you still want to be in Baldwin County and within reach of the coast when you want it. The trade-off is distance from the Gulf beaches. If your dream is daily beach access, Spanish Fort is probably not the right fit. But if your life is more focused around work, shopping, schools, commuting, and suburban convenience, it may be worth considering. Loxley and Summerdale are also worth mentioning because they can appeal to people who want something quieter and more inland. These areas are not usually the first places people search when they think about the Alabama Gulf Coast, but they can make sense depending on budget, space, and lifestyle. Loxley has a more central location with access to I-10, which can be helpful for people who need to travel toward Mobile, Pensacola, or other parts of Baldwin County. Summerdale is smaller and quieter with more of a rural or small town feel in many areas. These communities may appeal to people who want more space, less congestion, and a slower pace. They can also be options for buyers who want to stay within reach of Foley and the beach areas without being in the middle of the busiest parts of the county. The trade-off is that you may have fewer amenities immediately around you. You may be driving more for shopping, dining, and services. And if you want coastal energy or beach town atmosphere, these areas may feel too far removed. But if you want quieter inland living and you're comfortable driving, they may be worth looking at. Now, when people ask me what the best area is near the Alabama Gulf Coast, I always tell them that the answer depends on what kind of lifestyle they actually want. If you want beach access and coastal activity, Gulf Shores may be a strong option. If you want boating, marinas, waterfront living, and condos, Orange Beach may make more sense. If you want residential convenience and access to the beach without living right in the middle of it, Foley may be a better fit. If you want small town living and a more central Baldwin County location, Robertsdale may be worth considering. If you want charm, Mobile Bay views, and a more established downtown feel, Fairhope may be a good option. If you want suburban convenience and access to Mobile, Daphne, or Spanish Fort, they may make sense. And if you want something quieter and more inland, areas like Loxley, Summerdale, or Magnolia Springs may be worth exploring. The key is not to pick based only on what looks good online. You want to think about your normal week. Where will you buy groceries? How often do you want to go to the beach? Do you need to commute? Do you want walkability? Do you want more space? Do you want restaurants and shopping nearby? Do you want a quiet setting? Do you want a waterfront lifestyle? Once you answer those questions, it becomes much easier to narrow down the right areas. So those are some of the best areas to consider near the Alabama Gulf Coast. Again, there is no single best area for everyone. Each community offers something different, and the right choice depends on your lifestyle, your budget, your priorities, and what you want your day-to-day life to feel like. That is why it is so important to compare these areas carefully before making a decision, because where you live in Baldwin County can completely change your experience. And if you're thinking about moving to the Alabama Gulf Coast, whether that's Foley, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Robertsdale, Fairhope, Daphne, Spanish Fort, or anywhere nearby, feel free to reach out to me. I help people relocate to this area all the time, and I'd be happy to help you compare the different communities and figure out which one fits your lifestyle, budget, and long-term goals. You can call, text, or email me anytime. All of my contact information is in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I share a lot of videos about what it's really like living here along the Alabama Gulf Coast. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.